Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. The first thing I'm going to say is wow, this is incredible. What a show we have for you this morning. You won't believe how good the information and the sources are coming in. We're holding official talks with so many players. We'll get into why we're doing that in a minute, but Rasmus HOJLUND, Kolo Muani, two strikers, we are holding talks with those players to try and establish whether they can come to Manchester United this summer. A £10 million payoff for Harry Maguire, who may well be involved in his last Manchester United game in the FA Cup final. Chelsea, late attempts to hijack Mason Mount's desire to join Manchester United. We'll be talking about that. Manuel Ugarte, was talking about him yesterday for Sporting Lisbon. He is moving closer to a potential Manchester United move, according to what we're hearing as well. Harry Kane wants a Manchester United move. Manchester United willing to go in with a take it or leave it big offer. And that's just the start, Simon. There's so much to get into. This ain't just paper talk. This is real talk this morning. I don't think we've had a morning news show like this in a long time. And I suppose the question has to be, why? Why is this happening? Is there a sinister reason? Is it linked to sales, or is it actually Man United under a correct manager finally getting their arse into gear? Well, we'll talk about all that because there's absolutely loads and loads to get into. But I suppose the place I want to start is in relation to I suppose we'll start off with the story in The Athletic, because I think that the most relevant part is this. Manchester United have held detailed talks over potential deals for Atalanta striker Rasmus HOJLUND and Eintracht Frankfurt forward Kolo Muani. Now, this is coming in from The Athletic. It's coming in from Laurie Whitwell. He's a Manchester United correspondent, the same as James Ducker, the same as Simon Stone, the same as Manchester Evening News. You know, these people do have connections to United, and when they write stories, they're not Fabrizio Romano, they're not David Ornstein, they're not high-level I make my career off transfer journalists, and they're certainly not other journalists who try to make their career off transfers. These are people who follow Manchester United around home and away and are paid by their employers, their mainstream news outlets, to be as credible as they can be. So when The Athletic and Laurie Whitwell are saying that we've held detailed talks over potential deals for HOJLUND and Muani, we have officially held detailed talks over those players. Now, look, straight away, I've got to try and put this show together because, you know, I thought I'd be talking about Chelsea trying to hijack Mount and the Maguire deal, but this has sort of come out in the last half an hour. Make sure you subscribe, bottom right-hand corner, and smash your like. We were live at 11 o'clock last night, so 10 past 11 talking about Mount. Some people are waking up this morning talking about Mount personal terms agreed. We did that last night. You've got to move fast. Make sure you subscribe. Keep your notifications on. It's going to be busy, obviously. And I'm here for it. I'm here for it. I really am. Angry Ginger's on the show on Monday, yes. That's one of our signings done. But that's United Stand news. So anyway, let me get back on track to this. Why are we doing this? Well, Muani is high on Erik ten Hag's transfer list. Like he always has been. I thought Berkey says it's great United being proactive, but I'll tell you why they're being proactive in a moment. But Muani's always been high on the list. He's always been high on Erik ten Hag's list. Obviously missed that sitter in the World Cup final. Had a good season for over in Germany in the Bundesliga for Frankfurt, isn't it? Ten Hag really likes him. Now, he was expected to be going to Bayern Munich, but Bayern Munich are now looking at Vlahovic. So if Bayern Munich, I thought Bayern Munich would get Muani. If they don't get Muani, then he could end up at Man United. I mean, look, for me, though, I'd take those two. Does that not work? Two younger strikers for about 50 million each. That's the £100 million you spend on Harry Kane. Do you want Harry Kane for 100 million, or do you want Muani and HOJLUND, who are both young strikers, in HOJLUND's case, very young, for the same price, 2 for 1. I mean, in some cases, it might work. And as JK says, Muani does it all, goals and assists. Look, Muani's underrated. I like the fact that Ten Hag likes Muani because Muani's got it all. He has got assists. He has got goals in him. He has got creativity. You know, he's got the potential to be a really interesting striker, and Ten Hag's always liked him. I don't know whether we're going to buy him or not, but I just thought he was going to go to Bayern. So if he's not going to Bayern, I wouldn't be surprised if Ten Hag makes a move. Hi, Mark. Did you hear about Mount? It's a slow sports news. I have got some more news about Mount, but it's just hectic this morning. So the thing I want to talk about, and I think a lot of people, I said this at the end of I did a video last night talking about Mason Mount personal terms, if you want to watch it. But at the end of it, I sort of ended the video on a somber note. And I said, why are Man United signing players under the Glazers if the Glazers are going to sell? This doesn't look good to me that we're selling to Al Thani. Because if I'm Al Thani, I'm watching this going, you're thinking about selling to me, but you're buying me players when you're leaving next week. This doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. Of course it doesn't make sense. Why are the Glazers signing players if they're going to leave? It doesn't make sense. You're literally spending the money of the new owner without giving the owner any say on it. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like selling your house and the week before getting a brand new kitchen fitted and not speaking to the new owner. And they're like, hold on a minute, I might not like that kitchen. So it doesn't make a lot of sense. David Dowling, welcome to the Members Club. Thank you very much for joining and supporting the channel. However, there is something that sort of gives it a semblance of sense when you follow this Athletic article by Laurie Whitwell and you read this bit. This makes sense. John Murtagh has... Let me make sure it's on the screen for you. MUANI makes sense. He's very similar to Martial, says Tony Martial, as long as he hasn't got the injuries. So John Murtagh has stepped up dialogue around transfer targets since Man United secured Champions League football, with the aim of knowing the numbers involved on fees and wages ahead of the market opening. Now, of course, John Murtagh, I think, should be sacked. I don't like to say that, but based on the performance of the last few years, on his reign, especially last summer, which was a farce, I think he should be sacked. Now, does it surprise you that with the club about to be sold, certain people are suddenly going to start being very competent at their job? So I think you've got to bear that in mind. If you're John Murtagh, if you're working in recruitment, if you're Richard Arnold, you might suddenly notice United become a bit competent, because we haven't been. People are trying to keep their jobs here. So I think you've got to bear that in mind. Why are Man United suddenly so proactive? Last year, John and Richard are taking their swimming trunks to Barcelona on a futile effort to get Frankie de Jong. They're going on a trip to Turin and not coming back with anything. Suddenly, in May, we're holding official talks. We're getting Mason Mount. You know, we're moving quick. Why is that? Well, I think people are trying to keep their jobs for a start. I think that's a very logical thing. But also, I think this makes a lot of sense. And it might calm the nerves about where we're going to get sold to. Because that actually makes a lot of sense for Qatar, Al Thani and Sir Jim. What we're doing here is we are doing what we should be bloody doing all the time. We are holding early talks with people and saying, we're interested. Do you like our project? Yes, I do. Great. Right. Well, this club is going to be sold. We do have the funds. The minute that club is sold, and you're going to find out about that in the next 2 weeks, we will move forward on this deal. So don't go agreeing a deal to Liverpool or wherever because you think we're in turmoil. We're not in turmoil. We have got the money. And we will know in the next week or two, you know, who's in charge of Man United. And then we'll move forward on the deal. That's what we're doing here. We're not doing what Spurs are doing, which is we don't know who our manager is. We don't know what our plans are. We're doing nothing. We're busy doing something. We're speaking to MUANI. We're speaking to HOJLUND. And we're establishing transfer fees and wages, which, in all honesty, take time anyway. People say we've not been bought yet. But even if we want to buy MUANI, it's probably going to take 2, 3, 4 weeks to do it all anyway, by which time we'll have resolvement on the ownership anyway. So I would applaud what Man United are doing at the moment, because we're not sitting on our hands. We've got the manager who knows what he wants, and the club are going out trying to get those players whilst the sale process goes on. It's quite clever, and that is why we are holding official talks with people like MUANI and HOJLUND, and we're moving forward on Mount and Rice and other people. Morning, Mark. Do you think the new ownership is already done, but the Glazers are waiting to announce it after the final, says Marcus? And welcome to Members Club, Nielsen. I have got nothing to add in relation to the ownership. I don't know. I would say that the new ownership isn't done, but they could be waiting till after the final, and we've always felt that as well. Have you seen the Butland news, says Crystal? Can I just be honest? I couldn't give a toss about Butland. I mean, he's very, very, very low level this morning with the amount of stuff we've got to do. So unless he's telling me he's going to play as number 10 next season, I couldn't really give a toss about what's happening with Butland. Also, this might help you as well from The Athletic. Manchester United's ownership flux is adding to some uncertainty to budgets, but Ten Hag and the club's recruitment staff are progressing on a basis of business as usual, which is basically what I've said there. So the Athletic reporting this morning that Manchester United are holding official talks with Rasmus HOJLUND and Kolo Muani to establish wages, fees, etc. on the basis that in the next couple of weeks the sale will be sorted and they'll be able to move forward in finalising those deals. They're basically working on the premise of business as usual, whereby at some point in the very near future there'll be clarity on the future of United and they will be able to move forward. And remember what I said last Friday, whoever's in charge, whether it's the Glazers and Sir Jim or Al Thani, United are preparing and will spend in excess of £200 million. You should write that down, because on August the 31st I am going to say I told you so, because no one else is reporting that, and I'm telling you now, we will spend more than £200 million. Fact. So write it down. Could be, and whoever's in charge, could be that Qatar are backing the manager with the funds to spend. Also, did you see that Ten Hag swapped the dugouts round so the home bench is closer to Stretford End, says Shady? Yeah, he did that months ago, mate. The new owners might have told Glazers get what the manager wants, says Brian. They might have done. I don't know. I don't know on that. So really sort of breaking early news on the show this morning. It only came out in the last half an hour that Man United, according to Laurie Whitwell and The Athletic, are holding talks officially with MUANI and HOJLUND, and that they are prepping deals on the basis that they will be able to get these deals done in the very near future. Look, my general thought on MUANI and HOJLUND, very interesting profiles of players. They're not Osimhen, they're not Harry Kane, but they are players that, in the right pair of hands, with the right mentality and the right growth, can become two very, very, very good strikers in the European football scene. And we do need two strikers. Moyes supposedly liked Maguire transfer to West Ham plus cash for Royce, says John D. And do you think we would try and get both HOJLUND and MUANI, or just one of the two, says Amanda? Well, that's the thing. We do need two strikers. But that's a really interesting thing. Will we buy two strikers or not? Look, I'm not going to do this in any particular order now. John D mentioning Moyes and West Ham and Harry Maguire. Gustav says they're spending now so they get more popular, and then when they stay, think it won't be as bad because they're spending on the club, says Gustav. Mate, I don't know. I can't speak for the United fans. At the end of the day, if you think that the Glazers staying and spending money is a reason to back them, then you're a fool. You're a stone cold Steve Austin stunner. You need one of those. You're an absolute fool. If you can be kidded by the Glazers spending money, they've done it before. That's not the problem with the Glazers. The Glazers are just leeches who've destroyed this football club, and they need to go. There's nothing they can do to turn this around. Andy Weatherall gifted a membership. Thank you, Andy. You're a legend. There's a few things I want to talk about. I do want to talk about Agate, Kane, Mason Mount, the latest on that. But let's go to that Maguire story that John was talking about. David Moyes interested in Harry Maguire. Could that involve a Declan Rice swap? Well, there's two things to that. We don't know whether David Moyes will be the West Ham manager next season anyway. He may well leave in the summer. There was a lot of pressure on him. He kept them up. They're in a Conference League final, which would put them in the Europa League. You'd think that might be enough to keep him in a job, but you never know. Now, would Harry Maguire go to West Ham? I don't know. But there was a report from Sky last night, I think it was via the Daily Mail, saying that Manchester United, it could well be Harry Maguire's last involvement in a Manchester United game at the weekend in the FA Cup. And I say involvement, there's no way he should start. I'm doing my preview this afternoon. There's no way he should be starting. Tune in at 2 o'clock, live for that FA Cup preview. But, he may well... Look, nothing will please me more than to see Harry Maguire holding the FA Cup with Bruno. I mean, that's the dream on Saturday. That is the dream. But in essence, it should be Maguire's last game. If he's got any, ambition in him to keep his England spot, and at 30 years of age, you should want to play, not sit on the bench and pick up your wage. So he should be asking to go. It should be his last game. The issue is, and this was reported as well, the issue is that Manchester United could be preparing to give Harry Maguire a £10 million payoff. Now, I saw the outrage at that. To me, this is what happens if you have ownership like Newcastle, like Barcelona. like Manchester City. And I'm not saying that all those ownerships are perfect, but Barcelona are in the habit of doing this as well. When you don't want a player anymore and they're not part of the plans, you don't just let them sit there for a few years, taking up a training spot and earning a wage. If you look at it like this, it applies for Martial. It probably should have applied for Phil Jones. We probably knew a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, that Phil Jones was never part of our plans and we were never going to be able to sell him. What is the point in keeping a player like that around for 2 years when you could, and you're going to pay them wages anyway? Why not just pay their wage off? And that's what some clubs do. So Manchester United, Harry Maguire earns about £10 million a year and he's got 2 years left on his contract. Nobody is going to give him 200 grand a week. So what you do is you sell him to West Ham for 40 million. They pay him 100 grand a week, and then we give him a 10 million payoff for the extra that he would be getting staying at United. So he can sit on his arse at United and earn 200 grand a week for the next 2 years. Instead, you take 40 million from West Ham. He goes there and earns 100 grand a week, and then you give him 10 million, which basically makes it, you're basically getting 200 grand a week like you would have done here. It's common sense. I don't like it, but I didn't give him the contract in the first place. I think about Ten Hag. I think about what's best for Manchester United. So if West Ham gave us 40 million for Maguire and then we give him 10 to bump his wages up, we pocket 30 million and Maguire goes to West Ham. I don't really have a massive problem with it. And I know people do. And I saw people online going, oh, it's a bloody joke paying him off. I ain't got a problem with Maguire, and I haven't got a problem with that. That's business. That's us correcting the mistakes of the past. He's on 200 grand a week. No one's given him 200 grand a week. Even Man City wouldn't give him 200 grand a week, and they don't want him. So wherever he goes, he's not getting 200 grand a week, and that's the problem we have to solve because we gave him that wage in the first place. It's the same with Anthony Martial. If you want to sell Martial, you've probably got to sell him for 20 million and give him 10. That's how you do it. You've got to pay off a proportion of their wages because otherwise they are going to sit there and earn. He's earning that money anyway. You know, people who go, no, sell him, but don't give him the 10 million. Well, he doesn't go, and then he earns 20 million over the next 2 years anyway. He's getting that money. It's just get rid of him and give him the money. That's what you do. So look, I don't know whether Maguire's going to go. I think he needs to go. I think Ten Hag needs to tell him to go, and I think Maguire needs to realise he needs to go. It's not going to change, is it? He's not going to be United's starting centre-back for the next 4 years. He's going to get... It's just not. So it is time to go, and I think give him the money, pay him off, and wish him all the best. Great news if these signings come off, says Slippy Stevie G. Or is it the beginnings of the legendary Man United spin, says Slippy? I'm going to come back to that. It's a great point. Awesome channel and great community, says Sean. Thank you very much for being part of it, Sean. You're a legend. Can you give a happy 25th birthday to Brad Hill? Thank you, says Lily. Happy 25th birthday to Brad Hill. Well done for having a good birth. Well done for your birthday. Well done to your mum and dad as well, I suppose. But anyway, well done. Happy birthday. We don't want or need bench warmers. Get them out, says John. Do I think all this news that we are trying to get through this morning, which is incredible, because most of it is bloody credible, do I think that all this is spin? Yes and no. I go back to the start of the video. Man United holding official talks with MUANI and HOJLUND to establish transfer fees and wages and viability. That doesn't mean we're signing HOJLUND and MUANI. We might also be holding talks with so HOJLUND, MUANI. We want Kane. We might inquire about Osman, Ramos, maybe Vlahovic. We're probably holding talks with 6 or 7 strikers. That's not spin. That's United hedging their bets. That's United establishing options. That's actually good activity that we maybe haven't done in the past. So I don't think it's spin. It's only spin if you don't buy a striker. We are going to buy a striker. So in relation to the striker, it's not spin. We're not spinning stories out there to get the fan base excited. We're talking to a lot of people, and trust me on this one, the transfer industry is not discreet. It's just not. That's why I enjoy it. It's not... There's a lot of rubbish out there, but it's not discreet, and you have to sift through it. But if I'm the agent of MUANI, and I've held talks with Man United, and Man United say, please keep it quiet, I'm going to go... No, well, I'll say yes, but I'm not going to because I'm going to go, well, you're off to talk to HOJLUND now and Ramos. You might even not sign us. I need to use this to my advantage. You get on the phone, you get onto somebody who you know will blab, and you go, yeah, we've just held official talks with Man United for MUANI. Put it out there. Why do you put it out there? Because maybe the dream is to go to Man United, but if Man United don't go for him, Man United wanting MUANI boosts his profile. Suddenly, you've got teams like Spurs and maybe a PSG, and that's how the transfer industry works. It is so indiscreet. So we are holding talks with these players, but their agent and the player will use that to boost their profile. It might be for a new contract. It might be to get more interest, more options. The transfer world is so loose-lipped, and that is what's happening. I wouldn't say it's PR. I would say it's more United are trying to establish as many options as they can. A lot of negatives with sale and transfers. Need to remember we have Champions League football, Cup in the bag, and the FA Cup. I'm bricking it, says Jordan. Yes, that FA Cup is coming round very, very quickly. So look, let's section this off. We've just spoken about this article in The Athletic and the official talks with HOJLUND and MUANI in the search for a striker. The reason we're doing this is we're trying to establish prices and transfer fees and wages so that we can come back together and speak to Ten Hag and the club and go, look, we've got this. What are we going for? We can't afford that. That's ridiculous. He looks good. This is what we'll do. United got 67 million for finishing third in the league, says Hammond. Yeah, we spoke about that last week, didn't we? The boost as well from Adidas, that it doesn't drop down for not being out of the Champions League. There is nothing on a new centre-back this morning, but we will move on. Tom Grant says, morning, Mark. What's this we're hearing about Neymar not leaving PSG, but will only leave for United? Anything new on Mount after last night? We'll get to that, Tom. And let's get HOJLUND while we still can on the cheap before Napoli or Dortmund gets him and he goes for 100 million next season, says FIFA Crazy. I like HOJLUND. I do. I really do like HOJLUND. I'd like Manchester United to move for him. I really would. Just wrapping up on the strikers before we move on to the Mount latest and also the midfield and also a couple of other bits as well. Harry Kane. What's the latest with Harry Kane? I'm bored of it, but it's a news show and I know Robert McCormack FC and people like that, they do want Harry Kane. The latest on Harry Kane, and there is a little bit to add, obviously Spurs don't want to sell him. If they do sell him, they want stupid money. Harry Kane would like to go, but realises he's realistic here, that he probably can't go, so there won't be a transfer request. Man United do want him. Eric Ten Hag want him, but Man United realise this is going to be mission impossible. What United are planning to do is saying to Spurs very, very soon, very, very soon, they're going to put one offer in, take it or leave it, and then they'll go. And they'll literally go, there's 80 million, you can have it now, take it now, or leave it now, and we will move. And we might well come back in a year's time and take him for free, or we might never come back. But they're also doing it to Kane. They're basically saying, look, that's a bloody good offer for you. We're Manchester United. That starting striker spot's yours. We believe we can do great things together. We've offered Spurs 80 million. It's on the table for a couple of days. If they reject it, we move away. Unless they want to negotiate, we move away. And that's what United will do. They may well have already done it. Now, whether that'll work, probably not. Spurs will probably say, up yours, we don't even want to sell him. Kane will probably go, well, they're not going to sell me for that, and I'm certainly not going to push for a move, and that'll be the end of that. But I think United have to make an attempt. They have to make a logical offer, and they expect it will get rejected, and then they'll move on. That's what will happen with Kane, I think. Champions League, Europa League, Premier League, FA Cup, Carabao Cup. I say buy them all. We need the players, says Reagan. Thank you very much, Reagan. Right, let me talk to you next about... so that's the latest on the strikers at the moment. Very exciting news. I really do like Rasmus HOJLUND. I'm sort of with the hipsters on this. I really do like Rasmus HOJLUND. He's very young. He's very, very, very raw. But is that not what Man United and Ten Hag is all about? I just before we move on to the Mount story and a couple of other things, does it not frustrate you? Because it frustrates me. You know, when I say, and I've said it for a while, I really like Rasmus HOJLUND. I've not watched him play 20 games. I've probably watched him play 10, 15 games. And I'll always be honest with that. You know, some people say you don't watch Italian football. I've probably been watching Italian football way before you dropped out your mum's chuff, if I'm being honest, for most of you, because I've been watching Italian football since Italia 90. I fell in love with Italian football, and bloody hell, you know what? If you're a disciple of Italian football, you can't fail to understand football tactically, because if you spend your time watching Italian football in the 90s, it was, I mean, for a short period of time, you only got 2 points for a win. So a draw was seen as a good result. But yeah, it was tight. It was tight. I'm not going to mention chuffs again, but it was tight. And, you know, I've always loved Italian football. The grounds, the atmosphere, it all goes back to Italia 90 for me, which was the first World Cup I remember. From what I've seen of HOJLUND, I really like him. I've seen more of HOJLUND than MUANI. MUANI, I'm going off probably a handful of games and a lot of what people have said. With HOJLUND, I've seen more of him. I like him. I think he's got so much potential. But you know what? He is also, and I agree with the Atalanta manager, he's also very, very underdeveloped. The talent's there, but he's underdeveloped. But next year, he won't, in a year's time, he won't be underdeveloped. Next year is going to be his year where he becomes the dominant striker at Atalanta and he goes up a level, and that's when you're going to pay £100 million for him. So there's two things I would say. One, if you can get him for 50, 60 now, you're getting him for half the price of what he's going to be in a year. Plus, he comes to United and you shape his development. Now, since when? I've actually seen some United fans say, I don't want HOJLUND, he's not the finished article yet. Well, where were you when we bought Ronaldo from Sporting Lisbon? Like, it's not like we're not a football club that doesn't buy potential superstars and then develop them in-house. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Wayne Rooney wasn't the finished article. You knew he was going to be. Cristiano Ronaldo was very far from the finished article and nobody knew he was going to become what he did at Man United. So why shouldn't we buy HOJLUND? Why should the fact that he's not the finished article put us off? We're Manchester United. That's what we're about that. I know we're about developing youth from our youth setup, but we're also about buying youth and taking them to the next level as well. I think we should be all over the HOJLUND deal. I do. Kane likes being at the top of the bottom, says Cale Robinson. And Mark, what we get for Maguire, Bay, McTominay, Telles, Henderson, Alanga and Fred, I think we could ship out all those players, says DK. Off the top of my head, 30, 60, 100, 120 million, 130, 40 million, DK, off those lot, potentially. MUANI, Rasmus, Rice, Mount, Kim, best summer ever. John, I would take that. You know what? If we got MUANI, Rasmus, MUANI, let's go surnames. MUANI, HOJLUND, Rice, Mount, and Kim Min-jae, and a goalkeeper. We need a goalkeeper. That to me is bordering on 9.5. I mean, I'm not saying they'll all succeed, but you get two strikers, two midfielders, a centre-back and a goalkeeper. I mean, what's not liked about, you know, Ahmad's coming back, Garnacho will be better. I'd be like, let's go. I'd be like, over the next 2 years, we've got a challenge for the title if you get them in. And ultimately, how much are you spending there? MUANI 50, Rasmus HOJLUND 50, Rice probably 80, 180, Mount another 50, 230, Kim Min-jae about 45. You spent about 300 million quid there for those lot, but you'll probably make back about 140 in sales. So a net spend of 160. Come on. You can. I tell you what, we won't get that summer, John, but I'd be here for that summer. I really, really would. Anyway, Chilo wants the Mason Mount news. Right, I'm stunned that this morning we're 27 minutes into the news show and I'm only just giving you the Mason Mount story, which I actually thought we might be leading on this morning. So last night it broke. We were live. Make sure you subscribe. We will go live at any time when there's big news to get involved in. Last night, Mason Mount, personal terms agreed. James Ducker in the Telegraph. Great bit of reporting from James Ducker there. Telegraph, personal terms agreed. I say it's a great story because I will always appreciate, good reporting and brave reporting. I've been thinking all week about saying Mason Mount's deal done. Because people have told me, I mean, I've been hinting at it for over a week now. I've spoken to two very good people close to Chelsea, and they've both said to me, begrudgingly, because they both really like Mason Mount, they both said to me, I don't want him to go individually. I don't want him to go. He's a great lad, but the news is Man United, it's done. So I've known that for a week, but I haven't dared say deal done because you know the last time I did that was Alexis Sanchez, and we were a week ahead of all the journalists. And I shit myself that whole week because I was like, if this goes wrong, you know, we were a smaller channel then. So I didn't say deal done with Mason Mount. I've said it's looking like a deal done. So when James Ducker comes out with personal terms agreed last night, I respect that because it is ahead of everybody else. And, you know, it's basically saying that it's deal done. Now, this morning, what's the developments on it this morning? Personal terms are agreed with Mason Mount. Mason Mount wants to come to Manchester United. He's made that decision. That's why he was wandering around an empty Stamford Bridge on Sunday, looking a little bit sad. He has made the decision to leave Chelsea, and that decision has been made over the last few months because of the way that Chelsea's been run over the last year and the way that they've negotiated a new deal with him. He has felt underappreciated, detached from the club that he loves, and ultimately feels that at 24 he needs to turn his back on the club that he loves because of the way it's going. He's made that decision. He's very unlikely to change that decision, and he wants to come to Manchester United, who have, above Liverpool and Arsenal and everybody else, wooed him and dined him and made him feel part of something that has excited him more than anything else. So Mason Mount to Manchester United is basically going to happen. United just need to agree a fee with Chelsea. Now, Chelsea are willing to let Kovacic go to Manchester City. So I don't see Chelsea really holding up much of a blockage on Mason Mount when they need to raise money. Chelsea need to raise money desperately. You're going to see Chelsea over the next few weeks hemorrhage players, and you're going to go, oh, that's surprising. But they've hemorrhaged money over the last year. They've spent ridiculous money on ridiculous contracts and in some cases for ridiculous players. And the only way out of that, when you want to spend money for Poch, is to go, let Kovacic go to Man City, let Mount go to Man United. It's not a very intelligent transfer strategy to let some of your better players go to your rivals, but they need to do that to try and correct the chaos of the last year and generate money. United fans talk about financial fair play. Our financial fair play is very easy to manipulate. You get wages and you get players off the books, and you open up more opportunity. And we've got Champions League money. Chelsea have got no Champions League money. They've gambled on getting Champions League by spending a load in January. They have to hemorrhage players, and they are not in a position like a Newcastle to go, Bruno Guimaraes isn't for sale. You could offer us whatever you like. Chelsea have to go, there's £50 million there. We need to take it. So Kovacic will go to Man City, and Mount will probably come to Manchester United. However, there is a bit of a sting in the tail with this. Pochettino does want to keep Mason Mount, and Chelsea will attempt to keep him. But in all honesty, they also need the money. It's going to be good money, and he wants to leave. And also, when you look at Chelsea, where does Mason Mount fit in to a Pochettino 4-3-3? I don't know that he necessarily does. And he's had a bad season. And if he has a bad start to a season at Chelsea, I don't think Chelsea fans are going to be demanding that he's starting. So he needs a fresh page. And I think he will join Manchester United. As a percentage, I think we're probably at 90%, but I'd never say that anymore. So I'd probably say we're at a 80-85%. Reagan says, I agree with you, Mark. That's why Anthony is so exciting for me. The possibility of having another Ronaldo on our hands. Maybe I'm just too optimistic. We make superstars, says Reagan. Look, if you take one thing away from this show, and I don't really want to influence anything that anybody thinks, but do remember who we are. We're Manchester United. And when people say, I don't want HOJLUND, I don't want MUANI, they're not the finished product. I don't want the finished product. Part of the reason I don't really want Kane is because he's 30. He's a Spurs player. It worked with having Van Persie because we needed someone to score goals in a team that lost the title on goal difference. We're miles off the title. We're like bloody 25 points off the title. A striker's not going to get us 25 points. We're still building a team. If you're building a team, buy a player that can grow with us. I'm not expecting to win the title next year, but Rasmus HOJLUND the season after next could be one of the best strikers in Europe, ready to go, and he'd be like 22, and he'll be our strikers for the next 6-7 years. MUANI would be the same. So I actually disagree with any United fan who says, yeah, but he's not the finished article. Oh, and Ronaldo was when we bought him, and Rooney was when we bought him, and there's countless other players that we buy and you develop here. Mark, surely something has been agreed with the sale if we're close to signing Mount, as that would affect the club's valuation, says Jono. I don't know. I think in relation to the sale, you could become quite negative. You could say, look, the Glazers are clearly set. The Glazers are clearly staying. You could also say that there is a budget there of 100 million. Why not spend it on Mount first of all and see what happens with the sale? I don't know. Klaus says, do you think MUANI would integrate into the squad? It's been very sceptical of this deal, but if this is what Ten Hag wants, then I would support him. Sorry, Mount. Look, I did the video last night. I'd just done the Europa League final. I was very tired, and I just reacted to the personal terms agreed video. It was a very short video late at night. And I found it frustrating how many people were anti-Mason Mount coming to Manchester United. And it's got nothing to do with Mason Mount. I like Mason Mount. I think there's a good player there. I don't mind if people don't. But what frustrated me is that this manager has taken us from a dreadful season to third place outright by 4 points. We're comfortably the third best team in the league this year. No one can dispute that. And we're in 2 domestic cup finals. And people are questioning that manager going out at the end of May and getting his priority midfielder. I don't know why are we not trusting the manager. Like, I get that people might think Mount's not good enough, but Ten Hag clearly thinks he is. And when you look at what Ten Hag has done with Rashford this year, and when you look at what he's done with Delo this year, and you look at what he's done with even people like Bruno this year, there are many. I would even say Luke Shaw as his game has improved. In fact, I think most of our team has improved. Imagine what we've basically got a manager that can take a player and at their best can probably add another 20-30% on them. I mean, look at what look at what Pep will do with Kovacic. Kovacic has had a terrible season, but look at what Pep will do with him. How are you feeling about the upcoming window? You seem hopeful, excited. I'm always, we've been doing this for many years now, and I'm a veteran of Championship Manager and FIFA. I used to play these games as a kid. Graham Taylor, Soccer Manager. I love transfers. It's just, teletext page 302. Most of you won't know what that is. 312 for the transfer news. I love transfers. I just love it. I don't know why. I just do. I mean, you don't even play a game with transfers. It's just, but I do. I've always found it very exciting, and we've had bad summers, and I've still been enthusiastic. This one at the moment does feel like it's starting differently. Doesn't mean it's going to end differently. I mean, look, people, have you ever watched the London Marathon and you see some Pratt sprint the first 100 metres so that they're in the front? They'll probably finish last if they even finish it. So it's a marathon, not a sprint, but we don't normally start the marathon before anybody else anyway. So I'm optimistic, but the proof will be in how we deliver. I mean, how quick can we get deals done? We're normally very slow. Mark, I think that Mount may end up with us. Did you see the latest abuse he got on Twitter yesterday from Chelsea fans, says Fabian? And he's cancelled his Twitter account, hasn't he? Maybe he saw what was coming. Ray says, exactly, Mark. I want these players because when they hit the big time, they are making the United win and they can be United big players. Thanks, Ray. Hope you're doing well. Carmine's just gifted 20 memberships. What a legend this Thursday morning. You're an absolute legend for that. There's, what, as well? There's so much news coming out at the moment. Kevin Keegan, player manager, says Shane Hughes. There is so much news coming out at the moment because people are desperate, absolutely desperate to be the number one. Obviously we have Fabrizio on the show, and he was the original. Well, to be honest, Di Marzio was the original GOAT of transfers because he was the one that got Pogba, Mkhitaryan, and Zlatan way above anybody else. That was the summer where we really got the that was the summer where we really got the whole transfer guru sort of thing. And ever since then, even though people have stuck their nose up, there's certain journalists and there's certain mainstream outlets out there that stick their nose up in the air in relation to the content creation, current content we do, and transfer journalists. But like anybody who sticks their nose in the air and arrogantly ignores something that people like, they'll start coming around to it. And you may well notice now that those certain journalists will now, for the next 2 months, try to be Romanos. They'll try and do that, and that's what we're seeing. We're seeing journalists that follow Man United around and really just want to write about match reports and interviews. They're now trying to be about transfers. So there's, and I'm not saying that they're not getting good information on transfers, but it just means there's so much going on. Manchester Evening News have reported that Manchester United manager Erik ten Hag has held multiple video calls with the Atalanta striker Rasmus HOJLUND. I mean, this for me, and look, I'm crediting The Athletic. They broke it first. Laurie Whitwell broke it through first above anybody else. And I'm sure Fabrizio will have a story on this because Fabrizio is Italian based. But this to me is just, I don't really care where it comes from, as long as it's got some credibility. This is the striker that I said weeks ago I want, and people ridiculed for me. I said, no, this is the striker I want. I think this, I might get this wrong. Anybody can get anything wrong, but this is the striker for me that's going to be the next big striker in the next 2 or 3 years. Now, Evan Ferguson's another one. he's just signed a new deal at Brighton. You either get on these deals or you don't. And I think United have got an opportunity to get on this deal. He doesn't play for Dortmund. He doesn't play for Brighton. He plays for Atalanta. We've already took a player from Atalanta in the past, Ahmad. So there will be relations there. Atalanta are not a huge club in Serie A. They're not. There's an opportunity there to get in there and give them money that they will love. And it will not be £100 million. It will probably be half of that. So I think there's a deal there for United to do. And that deal could be, you get him for a decent price and you loan him back for a year. You know, we might do something like that. I'd hope not, but at least you get him. Troy says, what's your updates on Maguire? Have you heard the news on... No, I haven't, Troy. And can I just say, Troy, I've been doing this for 7 years. That is probably the worst put words together to try and get me say something like you should go for a long walk this morning and think about what a prat you are, that you actually thought you would get me with that. That's just embarrassing. I'm embarrassed for you, Troy. I can't believe you thought I would put those words together and say that rude statement. Absolute fool. You need to have a word with yourself. You've got a lot to learn, mate. Mark, I wanted to ask you last night, how do you know a deal hasn't been agreed and Alfani has said to Ten Hag, the funds are there, go get what you want? That's from Noodle. I don't think that's happened because I just think the world we operate in, this sale is going to be the biggest news around Man United for many people in years. And you've also got business journalists attached to this. I think if the Glazers had given Alfani the nod and he'd given them the nod back, we'd know. I don't think that's happened. I think it's more likely the Glazers are staying. But I'm not necessarily right about that. Would you look at Nkunku or will Chelsea get him? He's already done a deal, Mr. Tony. I mean, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that Nkunku to Chelsea's already done, isn't it? Kovacic is better with Casemiro as a centre midfielder. Experience as Noir. We're not in for Kovacic. I think the reason we're not in for Kovacic, if I'm being really honest, is that he's 29 and Eriksen's 31. I think Casemiro's 31. I just think Ten Hag is in for the long game and he's thinking, if I've got Bruno, Kovacic, Casemiro, Eriksen, I've got to buy 3 or 4 midfielders. You know, it's the Liverpool problem, isn't it? Liverpool have got to buy 3 or 4 midfielders this summer because Henderson and Fabinho, it's just not working out. And I think Ten Hag knows he's got to bring a younger profile of player in. And I think Kovacic is brilliant and I'd really like him, but I think he knows he's also got to bring homegrown in as well. He's got to bring younger and homegrown in. So, yeah. What's the latest on Manuel Ugarte, who actually, I'll give a shout out to Just Rams there because he's just asked that question, or she. and it sorry, it segues lovely into what we were just talking about there. So another report has come in from Portugal saying that Man United and PSG are moving ahead in the race for Manuel Ugarte, who we spoke about in more depth yesterday morning. Uruguayan midfielder, Sporting Lisbon, 22, 21. Ridiculous defensive monster in the midfield. Ridiculous amounts of interceptions and tackles. Does need to work on his passing, definitely. You know, be very, very happy with Man United getting HOJLUND, MUANI, Mount, Ugarte, Kim Min-jae. Be very, very happy with that. And you'd save money because he won't cost anywhere near as much as Declan Rice. The problem is it's Portuguese reports. And I just do not think that we are going to... Look, things could change very, very quickly. I'm not sure that Man United are in for Ugarte. I'd like it. I'm just not sure they are because it's Portuguese reports. And Portuguese reports, as we all know, we all go back to Gayton of Benfica, who was signing for us every week of every transfer window for about 5 years. You can't trust the Portuguese papers. And look, Bruno was an example as well. That summer we didn't get Bruno. We spent every day understanding everything there is about Bola and Record and every other Portuguese outlet, and it didn't happen. So whilst it's just Portuguese reports, I really would say Ugarte is probably not worth thinking about at the moment. He probably will make a move. Apparently Fabrizio has said it's Chelsea versus PSG. I think Chelsea does seem more advanced than Manchester United at the moment. But David says that Ten Hag has held calls with HOJLUND. Well, I mean, look, I almost feel a bit bad for the Athletic there, because the Athletic have basically broken that news. We've held official talks with HOJLUND and MUANI. I mean, Manchester Evening News are now saying it's video calls, but, you know, that's like me saying I went on a date with Margot Robbie, and then Manchester Evening News saying we had lasagna. Like, yeah, okay, they've got a little bit more detail on it, but ultimately, the official talks, what do people think official talks are? You know, official talks aren't like sending a pigeon. It means you've held talks with HOJLUND and MUANI. What I will say, and I bet none of them have said it though, you've got to say this: I'll give you something extra. Who gives you extra? I'll give you something extra that they haven't given you. HOJLUND hasn't even sorted his new agent out. He's looking for a new agent. So that is going to have a big impact on any deal for HOJLUND. And has anybody reported that? HOJLUND has to sort his agent out first. And he's looking for a new agent. Now, when that gets sorted, that will have a massive impact. And that's not my news. That's your news that you should remember, much the same as Kim Min-jae's got a release clause for 2 weeks. Where did you hear that? Fabrizio Romano on the United stand 6 months ago. Kim Min-jae release clause for 2 weeks in the summer. That's where that story broke, and that was from Fabrizio, who's based in Italy. So what I would say is, Fabrizio said a few weeks ago on this channel about HOJLUND, he's looking for a new agent. And when that happens, I think a lot more clarity will happen with his future. Now, has he got that new agent yet? Maybe that's why these stories are coming out. But obviously, that's going to have a very big impact. Those not happy with Mount should look at the Athletics video on him. He's top class. And with Erik ten Hag, he will have a higher ceiling. That's coming in from Vagabond. Thank you very much. Thank you very much there. We need Casemiro back up. And Tom Barkley says that SEG International Agency that represents Ten Hag are also trying to acquire HOJLUND as a client. So there you go. That's there's always little intricacies in a story that develop a story. And I remember Fabrizio saying that to us weeks ago. The thing about HOJLUND is he's looking for a new agent, and whoever that new agent is going to have a very big impact on his summer window. Because what was the player that had the same agency as Ten Hag? It was Gakpo. So it doesn't always work like that. Busquets on a free for a year, says Jason. No. Mark, can you give a shout out to my mate Mick? He's a big Aussie Red, says Tommy Brooks. Thank you very much. Big shout out to Mick. Fast Sports News, says Curtis. Well, we try to be fast sports news on here, but there is a lot of news at the moment. I mean, I sometimes think about the morning show and you're talking about a boot deal, but yes, it's very interesting, isn't it? And it's good to try. It's, you know what, it's good to have. That's why I love doing the morning show, because I really don't care who we give credit to. I really don't care who we report on. It's news, isn't it? And then you report the news, and then you give your opinion on that news based on experience of doing this for many, many years. But, you know, in summary, I think hopefully it will be the last game for Harry on Saturday. I've got no issue with him being paid £10 million, because ultimately we're going to give him 20 million over the next 2 years if he stays in wages anyway. So I just think that's just competent business to solve a problem. I think in relation to MUANI and HOJLUND is clearly very, very exciting, and I really, really do like him. And we're clearly holding talks with him. But I wouldn't take my eye off MUANI either, because MUANI's always been in Ten Hag's top three. For months, MUANI's been in Ten Hag's top three. If you think about all the news we've reported on, all the journalists who have had any credibility, it's always been Kane, Osimhen and MUANI who've been the three. And Ramos has been in there. So I think MUANI, if he doesn't go to Bayern, is very interesting. I'll talk about João Felix now, Abdul, actually. And Mount looks like it will happen. I think Chelsea will make an effort, but we'll have to wait and see on that one. Mark, will you be doing a video on the new kits? I'd like to know your thoughts. No, I'll be doing a video on the preview of the FA Cup final. I couldn't give a shit about the kits. I don't buy them, so I'm not really bothered. I don't mind the retro kits, but I'm not that bothered. And also, João Felix. Just very interesting on João Felix. Two things that, and this is why I've said this a few times now. I think the race for top four next season is the most difficult to predict I can ever remember. Because you've got Arsenal in second, we're in third, and Newcastle in fourth, and all three of us might not be in the top four next year if we get our summer transfer window wrong, because teams like Chelsea and Liverpool and, you know, God knows who else could come through. Everybody knows that this summer transfer window will dictate next season massively. If Arsenal didn't buy anybody, they'll be out the top four. If Newcastle buy badly, they'll be out the top four. If Man United don't have a high transfer budget, they'll be out the top four. It's all about... Thanks for that as well from Porp. Says, what a great show today. It has been fantastic. Make sure you smash a like and subscribe. But it's all about what you do this summer. And if you don't do good business, you'll be in trouble. Now, look at Newcastle. They are now talking to João Felix. They're just about to buy that Betis. Is it Betis attacking midfielder? It looks like he's going to be the next David Silva. What's his first name? Not Gavi. Is it Gabri Vega or something like that? Betis. Newcastle looking at him, attacking midfielder. I mean, does that mean they're not going to bother going for Maddison anymore? João Felix is being linked to them. You know, I'm not saying João Felix is going to sign for Newcastle, but Newcastle look like a really well-run club. You look at the mistakes that Man City made at the start with Robinho and bloody Lescott and Adebayor and all like that. Newcastle took their head of director of football for Brighton. Like, they're not a stupid football club. They're going to try and buy well. Arsenal are going to try and buy well. Liverpool have already got McAllister. They're trying to buy Thuram and Kone and other players. Everybody's trying to buy well. I think this summer, look at Kovacic going to Man City. I actually think this summer you're going to be looking at what United are doing and hoping we're going to do really well. And it sounds promising at the moment. But even if we do well, I still think we'll look at Liverpool and go, that's a bloody good signing. Oh, he's a good signing for Newcastle. It's such a competitive transfer window. And it looks like United and Ten Hag have figured that out very quickly. And that's why we're having these talks, trying to, you know, it's a race, isn't it? You know, you can't be calm about it. You can't be slow about it. You've got to move quickly. Can't wait for Veghorst to win the cup for us. This FA Cup is panicking me. You know, you're looking forward. It's not Betis, it's Celta Vigo. I always get them two mixed up, Betis and Celta Vigo. Yeah, this FA Cup final is coming too quick. It needs to slow down a bit. It really does. But yeah, it's coming around way too quick for my love. Rogue says we'll be linked to Pele next. But you know what? In relation to the players that we're being linked to, what's your problem with it, really? You might not want Mason Mount, but it's credible. We've agreed personal terms. It's not spin. It's not paper talk. It's credible. Kim Min-jae, we might not get him, but it's credible interest, and he has got a release clause, and that won't happen until the first couple of weeks of July. Rabiot, you might not want it, but he is available for free. We did try to get him last year, and that will happen at the end of June if it's going to happen. The striker situation, we will bid for Kane. We won't get him, and then where do you go? Well, MUANI's always been on the list. Rasmus HOJLUND is a fantastic player that we know Ten Hag likes. It's very well reported that he likes him. Declan Rice, I think if the minute Mount signs, Declan Rice to Man United becomes a lot more likely. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it becomes a lot more likely. So we are linked to a lot of players, and we know we're going to get a goalkeeper of some distinction at some point. Some description. I don't feel like we're all over the place with the stories. I don't feel like, you know, Neymar's probably the most unlikely one, but normally you've got all sorts of deals that we're never going to do, aren't you? I think that the stories, we might not get all the players, but at least a lot of the stories we're getting, they make sense and they are quite advanced. Would you take anyone from the relegated club, says Jono? No. I call this the Tillemans effect. I couldn't give a toss about value for money or getting a player that's worth 40 million for free. If the player at 40 million I wouldn't want. There's value in getting Tillemans for nothing because he's worth 40 million. But would I pay 40 million for him? No. I don't. We're Manchester United. Why are we looking for bargains? The only bargains I would do is if they are brilliant players. There's one player that sticks out for me. That's Lavia at Southampton, or Lavia, however you pronounce it. I would take him because I think he's got the potential to be a top player. But I'm not, it's like if you ever played Football Manager or FIFA and you're managing someone like Everton and you need to get good players in and you haven't got much of a budget, you go bargain basement hunting with the teams that get relegated. We don't need to do that. You look at Southampton, you look at Leeds, you look at Leicester and you go, is there a player there that Man City would want? Let's go and do it. But I don't really see that. Do you see formations changing with the new signings? Surely there are clauses in place for those new starters, says Jordan. Andy has gifted a membership as well. I think with Mason Mount, he will play in the Eriksen role. But there will be an adaptation to the way we play next year if we get a striker anyway. We won't be so reliant on shoot on side, cut inside wingers and things like that. We will have to be more creative. Would you? So yeah, thank you, Jono, for that. And Jordan, shame we can't champ manager it. Feels like he was brought to the club under false pretense, as Greg Forst. Madders is clear of Mount, says Theo. Well, thank God we're not even trying to sign James Maddison. I mean, I just think he's massively overrated, but go and support where he goes. Why Chelsea ahead of Osimhen race with no Champions League to offer, says Sharon? Look, it's very quiet on Osimhen. Osimhen's gone really quiet. I spoke to somebody a couple of days ago about Osimhen. Chelsea really want him, and Pochettino wants a striker that can score lots of goals. They want a status striker. But Chelsea might end up in a situation where they're in such a mess that they have to bring Lukaku back. Osimhen could end up being priced out of the market. Like, he could end up staying at Napoli for another year. But I would still say that Man United are not really in that race. Because the price, if you spend £130 million on Victor Osimhen, well, we spoke a few minutes ago how you can spend 290 million and get MUANI, HOJLUND, Mount, Rice, Kim Min-jae and a keeper for 290 million. You spend 130 million pounds on Osimhen, that's half of that gone. You're not getting all those other players. So I like Osimhen, but he might end up being priced out of the market, really. Napoli are a hard club to deal with. We should be linked with Beryl. She did good last time, says Zahil. Thank you very much. And Jack says, what do you think of Mourinho waiting for Anthony Taylor after Europa League final? Total disgrace, great manager, terrible person, says Jack. What did he wait for him for? Well, I think Anthony Taylor's a terrible referee, and I still to this moment cannot understand why it was not a handball. I thought Roma were robbed. I was on the watch along on That's Football last night, and I apologised to any Italian fans, and I said we have to put up with this every week. Inconsistent decisions that are baffling, and unfortunately, the Italian rule for handball is a lot more clearer. So they'll be gutted by that. But yeah, it should have been handball. Terrible decision. Matic crosses that. It carries a long way. The hand is there. It hits him on the hand. I don't care about natural arm positions. He's got plenty of time to move it. There were bloody Roma players defending with arms behind their back. It's hit him on the hand. It should have been a penalty. Unknown says, what about Neymar? Don't know anything about Neymar. I think we will start to get lots of stories now. Some of them will start to be bullshit. But I can't see any developments around Neymar this morning. Not heard anything. Haven't actually got my phone, but let's have a quick look if there's any breaking news. I was looking here. So Mourinho was waiting in the car park for referee Anthony Taylor, and he said, "You're a fucking disgrace." Well, it's about time somebody said it to him. I just thought the handball was a disgrace, but that's nothing to do with here. Can't see anything on Neymar though. Well, look, I'm sure we're going to be back. There's loads going on. It's been probably one of the most action-packed morning shows we've ever done, because there's just been so much to talk about and so much credibility there. I will attempt to do Twitch today at 3:30, but the way it's going with United, who knows? But planning to do the FA Cup preview at 2 o'clock this afternoon. There will be a top 2 o'clock show. Obviously got the 8 o'clock show. Let's wait and see. We're sort of in that area now where we can go live at any time. We did our first late one last night at 11 o'clock about Mount. Just make sure you subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. And if you have subscribed, make sure you click the bell and do the ticks to get all your notifications. It's going to be a big one. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in this morning. Really, really enjoyable show. Let's hope that some of these stories can come to fruition. Some really good reporting, some really good stories, and it's looking encouraging around Ten Hag. And in relation to the sale, this is not making me pro-Glazer. This is just, I'm pro-Ten Hag. I want Ten Hag to get what he wants, because if he gets what he wants, I think he can take us to the next level. Thanks, everyone, for watching.